Good morning and welcome back to Morning Express. We are glad you're watching on this Monday. It is the 8th day of June. From Matters Sports, we want to get into current affairs and lots to discuss this morning. Joining us in studio today is Ambrose Wedder, who's a lawyer. We also have Agostino Neto next to him. He's a Ndiwa Member of Parliament. Beatrice Stelachi is a majority whip in the Senate. Hassan Omar, Senator Mombasa County, Secretary and Wiper Party as well. We thank you all for being with us. I hope you had a good weekend.
She's also the Secretary of the Bus Party.
You were just saying something before we went on air that she's the most respected.
She's one of the most respected senators within our ranks. Our ability to be able to reach across the aisle. So Beatrice enjoys respect of both coalitions. We might not agree on everything, but on a number of things, I think she's a darling senator to many of us. That's what I was saying off the set, which can be repeated on set.
Yes, should be repeated.
Well, I'm humbled to my senator.
All right, and we'll start with one of the committees you've sat in, the mediation on this mediation on the revenue division. So budget cuts, a lot of controversy around that. So you were successful in getting that finally 3 billion shillings that at least for the Senate, coming down of course from 7 billion. However, that has come with a lot of complaints and issues on Senate getting 1 billion less, the judiciary of course been affected there, SRC. Talk to us about how all of this has come to be.
Well, first I think as a committee, first I want to thank the whole mediation team and especially TJ, because I think he's the one who unlocked the whole stalemate. But having said that, I'm disappointed with the chairman that he was not able to just present the report the way it was and the way we agreed, because when you come to a mediation team, you don't look at the houses anymore. You come in as a mediation committee to assist Parliament as an institution to move on together. And therefore, within the committee, I know we agreed a few issues, but more important, the Senate had given them a breakdown where you get the resources. And they would have gone that route, and therefore we would not have taken money from any of the commissions. We had agreed purely that go to the county functions that are there, prioritize them from the national level, what is remaining in the ministries. Take some from the national irrigation where you have given them 12 billion and for the last 2 years you've only spent 3.5 billion. And then move on to the other angles where we looked at. And therefore the money we agreed was just to come from the same functions of the county governments. But anyway, having said that also, I am disappointed that one, I know he was under pressure. But you know when you're under pressure, you come in the committee, you explain your pressure. The members will understand.
So under pressure
but
to
as,
do what?
Well, not to ensure that there is no money, because the reasons were very clear. One, money bills are done by the National Assembly. The Senate respects that, purely. But two, budgets are negotiable. And therefore, if we feel money was not enough for referral hospitals, and that was what our main agenda. You can see how the climate has changed. We'll have many casualties coming to hospital. We have other challenges that we are facing. Let us improve money for the referral hospital. Let us put 1 billion shillings, which Sarah Serem had requested an increase to county governments, so that we are able, which I saw in the papers now yesterday, people crying, oh, 90,000 people will go home. But yet the Senate, for the last 2 years, has been reminding people, look, we had our own Kenyans employed in the defectant, whatever. Now they've moved to the governance. Why are we? That 1 billion would have sorted some of those challenges that we are now saying.
So you're not in agreement with what you arrived at as a team, the mediation team. So there was no consensus in essence. How is it you arrived at this?
In the end, we had consensus. In the end, because you know, in a committee, you have no choice. It's a democracy process. The majority, when they check, you have to accept and move on with the majority. So the chairman would have just gone to the National Assembly and say, as a committee, we have agreed this. But then you don't become emotional, because they became emotional. They went on now each speaker who spoke, and I'm not saying Neto because I didn't see him, but every speaker who spoke was speaking about his personal issues with his senator.
Right.
It does not work that way.
All right, we'll come to Neto because the Parliament, National Assembly rather, has been accused of being vindictive with some of this and what it has meant, the repercussions of the same. But Omar, I'll come to you and your thoughts on what you're hearing.
You know, I think we were going to endorse any outcome of the mediation team. And I'm happy that the mediation team was able to break the stalemate. And as everybody says, TJ actually is TJ Kajwang, one of our members of parliament from Nairobi. And he was able to say that really, he did concur with the fact that we needed to cushion the monies that are taken to the referral hospitals because they serve almost all a net issue of Kenyans. I think if you did realize that there was almost a discussion on Reverend Mutava Musimi in the National Assembly itself. He feels himself as an appendage to the executive. I think he's not a very good team player. Even the committee acknowledged that fact. He tends to ignore recommendations of his members. And I think there was a time, as I said, I thought he could be the president of this country. I remember there was a time we were talking about consensus presidency, and I think people were saying Mutava Musimi. I don't think if he cannot lead a committee, it's in God's good grace that we would never give him this country. And I thought I do agree with Uhuru Kenyatta that this is not a supremacy war. This is about serving everybody, and we were to mitigate the interests. And those interests then should not come and start being a vindictive, some score-settling kind of a charade in the National Assembly. I remember we met Aden Duale, Senator Mutula Kilonzo, Senator Munyes, and myself was speaking to Aden Duale about and Senator from Kilifi, Stephen Madzayo. And Duale had actually concurred that let's give you the 3 billion, let's give the counties the 3 billion. Then Reverend Musimi walks by, pulls Duale aside, says, oh, I need to report to him. And we tried to tell him, Reverend, you need to, negotiate a consensus. But I could tell from the way his body language, I don't know what he gets out of all this. So I think for me, it has nothing much to do with the National Assembly in its entirety. It's a question of a failing of leadership. And that's why I think I would concur with the president that, Reverend and whoever else, this is not a supremacy battle.
Okay.
This is about mitigating the interests of our counties and the Kenyan people at large.
So, Neto, for those who look at this as the National Assembly seeking to settle a score, SRC because of reducing your parks on travel, getting part of that money reduced, judiciary as well, the Senate, what do you say to those people?
First of all, I really like to thank my two senators. First, they're agreeing that it is not the National Assembly in entirety working to look like we're a group of greedy people or people who are very unreasonable. But first, let's thank Senator Elachi and the team for unlocking the deadlock in the mediation committee. Because as you agree and you hear, it's one member of the National Assembly who actually helped break the impasse, which means that some people in the National Assembly are faithful and want the country to run properly in terms of revenues being allocated to where it belongs. But if you remember very well this budget debate, even the passing of the budget prospectus in the last week was halted because of what members of the National Assembly in itself felt like the Committee of Budget was being rogue and doing its own things. So I really think that one, it's the leadership of the Budget Committee, which I think even the National Assembly Speaker himself has castigated, and we've spoken in no uncertain terms. The Budget Committee at some point allocated the members of the Budget Committee lots of money, 50 million shillings for people's individual votes in their various constituencies because you're simply a member of the Budget Committee. So I really think it's a Budget Committee that has gone rogue, that needs to be checked, I think, if we have to move forward. Okay. But the second thing is not the National Assembly. I mean, sometimes people bear the flag, and it's unfortunate that the Sarah Serem Commission sometimes bears the flag. But, let's put it fair and square that sometimes the SRC Commission itself also puts itself in places where you just have to bear the flag. When, for example, a commissioner wants to ask for crazy sitting allowances, 80 million shillings, of course you're not on permanent pay, but you do not justify the sitting allowances that you're asking for. You definitely are going to get a cut. And when that happens, most people do not understand why the cut is happening. They really think that the National Assembly is hitting back at Sarah Serem. On the one hand, you're giving people structures in terms of you're putting up gazette notices in terms of how much the National Assembly can take away. But on your other side, you're also requesting for the same sitting allowances, which is, I think, 80,000 shillings a sitting allowance, which is crazy. Computed, it goes to lots of money. And I really think that the SRC should be honest.
Okay.
The judiciary on the other side, it is nothing, it's not a fight. The number of times, I sit in the Committee of Justice and Legal Affairs, which actually oversights the judiciary. Each time we've given the judiciary money, sometimes it is used for the very wrong things. Look at the fight on the Court of Appeal, look at the High Court fight, the last they were having. The judiciary came before the National Assembly Committee of Justice. They were asking for money to buy, I think, a light aircraft or something like that. So such a ridiculous request that you know, you want to give money, yes, but that money also must be put into good use.
All right. Is the National Assembly in general then being judged harshly, that it is a few people that are selfish, that want to make this to appear to be a supremacy battle, and in fact it is not?
I think the National Assembly, when things become hot, they shift the chairs. Now they tell you there's this committee. That's a committee they themselves formed, and they can disband it day one. But when it is good to take the heat for them, then they say it is this Mutava Musyimi committee, it is Sarah Serem, it is so and so. The National Assembly is on record as saying they would disband the Sarah Serem commission when Sarah Serem told them you have to be subjected to these standards. Okay? And now they know and they agree they are earning illegal salaries, and I keep on saying one day we will take you to court and you'll refund these monies. So they are paying back because Sarah Serem has insisted. And then other areas. When they are finished with Sarah Serem, then they go to the Senate. Who is superior? Who is what? Now we are talking about insecurity, how we should deal with it. A lot of money should go into that. They are not doing that. They are fighting about their allowances. If you see the points of difference, it is not about funding operations to fight Al-Shabaab. It's about my salary, my sitting allowance, my this, my that. In fact, if we could have just 100 MPs who are serious, Kenya would be much better.
Okay, so it's a leadership that's missing the point, Senator Elachi.
Well, I don't want to talk about the leadership, but I would say that, well, sometimes I know in the committee at one point I also reminded ourselves that I know we are now fighting for just 3 billion of, at that time it was 5 billion for counties. And I was told, you know, we must look at the technical team. So I asked them, now we are looking for technical team because it's money for counties. But if it is our own, we will just take it and we won't even explain to Kenyans. We have no business even explaining how we got it, how we took it. I mean, and it's something we need to really start justifying to Kenyans so that we don't find ourselves in this scenario. But one of the things I just want to support on NATO is that it's not just the National Assembly, it's Parliament. Some of these things, let's put it together, Parliament, because if there are salaries, we are equal in salaries, everything is the same in Parliament. Now, where I get now confused with the name Parliament is when now the National Assembly comes in and says, as Parliament, now as National Assembly, we must implement projects. We must have CDF. I have no problem with CDF, but I have a problem with the way now the formula looks like. Because if you're going to take the same formula we are using for county governments and national government, then there's a problem. Because what you're trying to do is you're giving Mandera, Turkana, I don't know where, some very huge monies, then you add them CDF with some very huge, again, amounts, but you're forgetting where Mombasa you are drawing revenue, they are going into deficit, and yet again, the same CDF, they go into a deficit.
So is the CDF, in essence, then undermining devolution even in its own spirit?
In fact,
that one now is something now we need to discuss with them and say, look, we cannot be having counties going into a deficit, and again you add, see, we've added them money. So you find in a county, we've given them 10 billion, they will go to 12 billion because of CDF. And we find a county, we've given them 3 billion, that is where you're collecting revenue. Again, you'll give them less in their city. So it is something they need to look at.
I think
a very bad formula that either we look at or we say now all legislators are equal, let's work.
So CDF out?
Out. Let it go to national and county government and they do their work.
One thing I want to agree with Neto, it might not be all the members of the National Assembly, but one thing I also do agree is with Governor Munya. There must be a way to check the National Assembly. It cannot run rogue. I think it's becoming a danger to our democracy and to our constitutional and institutional structures. If you think you can be so arbitrary in a negotiated settlement, if you think you can punish another organizations that you disagree with, I agree in principle that there are about 3 commissions that take an extraordinarily vulgar allowances, and Sara Sarem Commission is one of it. In fact, it's what we call a part-time commission. They meet almost every day, and they take an allowance of about 80,000 every time they're in any function, including when it comes to a function that she's been invited officially. So it reads as a sitting, about 80,000, I think, per sitting. Yeah. So I think it's very unreasonable. That also applies for the GIC, and it applies also to a certain extent to our own commission, the Parliamentary Service Commission. I find it extremely insulting and vulgar, outrageous. It's just wrong morally. And on the other side, you're talking about limiting a wage bill. So in the net sum, I have seen that paperwork. In the net sum, Sara Sarem takes as much money as any member of Parliament. You know, you just need to sit. You need to sit 10 times in a month for you to get to the salary of a member of Parliament, 800,000. So I think that's wrong. I think immoral. So I think that's
so
said and done.
To tame the powers of members of Parliament, you're in agreement with that?
I'm in concurrence. In other words, there must be oversight mechanism where Senate or other institutions can be able to sometimes. We have the courts that is a final resort, and they're fighting the courts, because if you go to court, the court can decide to quash a decision of the National Assembly or even the Senate or any decision of any state organ. So my own view is, I think as we are implementing this constitution, we must internalize what needs to be done in terms of checking some of these excesses that we are seeing.
So Neto, you and your colleagues wielding too much power, prone to abuse?
I think to call for the check of the National Assembly, I think that might not make so much sense, because the National Assembly is already checked within the Constitution. But let me say a couple of things that my colleagues have spoken to. The first one is on the formula for distributing revenue across the country. Perhaps that needs to be looked at. But as to whether the constituency development funds makes more sense or not, I really think the jury is out there. Kenyans will tell you if the amount of development they see in the constituency is much more to do with what the member of the National Assembly does as opposed to what the governor does. So now.
But how do you then compare that with devolution? Is that the essence of letting the county governments go on their own instead of still handling them as this?
That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah.
I really think what we need to do is to look at the constituency, for example, as perhaps a unit of devolution. What needs to be looked at not is whether the CDF is useful or not, but I really think Kenyans really need to look at what is the construct of devolution that you really need to work on. Whether do we make the constituency the ward level at the levels of devolution? Because right now, what you have is a lot of money being given to the county government, but the county government, I think, is half of them are fairly incompetent. I mean, to use a less than a stronger word, because either there's a lot of bureaucracy and there's a lot of corruption at the county government level. So if you looked at the construct of devolution where the National Assembly and the wards are also units of devolution, then for example, you could have all the monies charged to the counties distributed among those various units. That then would make a lot of sense, because then every constituency would have quantifiable amounts of development because of those various levels of devolution. But I really think that the current structure we have right now perhaps is a problem, so that it's not whether money is given to the senator or the money is given to a member of the National Assembly. We just need to look at how best do we channel this money. I think that is the formula that Kenyans are not grappled with. So the second thing we need to talk about is the National Assembly. I think the problem we have right now is we're coming into a new constitutional dispensation. Most members of the National Assembly still do not appreciate that the National Assembly should be checking the executive. Half of them think they're an appendage of the executive. In fact, they tell you it's our government. So you really get confused when members of the National Assembly take instructions from the executive. And this has happened several times, and that is where the problem lies. You might have an executive, the presidency and the deputy presidency, not very keen on devolution. So then you have their thoughts being manifest in the National Assembly. And when that thought is manifest in the National Assembly, then you have a National Assembly that is gone rogue. Not that the Constitution cannot check the National Assembly. No, we are sufficiently checked, just that you have a group of people who do not understand their mandate as within the meaning of the Constitution.
So you had earlier conceded that there are members in the National Assembly who would abuse their power, but then in general you say there is no need to relook at some of these powers you have. Briefly.
It's not about members. You see, members of the National Assembly going rogue simply means that they do not understand their mandate. I mean, look, if you're supposed to be vetting commissioners, if you're supposed to be, for example, passing budgets and checking the executive in terms of how much money is given to a particular ministry, you do not listen to the presidency. The presidency might be having an interest. Look, when Honorable Mutava Musyimi comes to a mediation committee, he's supposed to be coming with clean hands. When you come to a mediation committee with clean hands, means you're the ones in charge, you know how much to allocate. Parliament, actually the National Assembly, has power to tell the executive, on this one you're wrong. But if the National Assembly is the one listening to the executive, really, then the check and the balance system the Constitution anticipates then fails. And that is not a failure of the Constitution, it's a failure of the person who holds the office, who then either needs to be removed, or you do not check the National Assembly.
All right, what are your thoughts on this and whether we need to be trimming some of these powers as a country?
You see, if you take the constitutional position that the members of the National Assembly are supposed to play the role of oversight, then receiving money in the name of CDF and trying to allocate it to their cousins and brothers is actually in direct conflict. The money should go, but the MP should actually be playing the role of oversight. Therefore, it means there should be a totally different independent organ in charge of that money, whether it is the county or another. But they are the members of the National Assembly are clinging to it. If you see what they are doing with it in the villages, you'll just cry tears of the cross of Christ. They give to their friends, the people who are opposed to them, they don't give. And that is why even my brother was very clear-minded, but they get cake. When it comes to CDF, even Neto here gets very cake. He doesn't know what to say. Secondly, if you look at the National Assembly, under our Constitution is supposed to be one doing oversight. But when it is convenient for them, then they are either called or who, thereby forgetting the role that their duty is one, to check the national government, which is on one side. And so the assembly members need to be retrained, they learn. But touching, when it comes to money, I think they just run berserk. They just lose it. That's the part we will continue praying for you, so that you see, that even money. Now you see, Sarah Serem is saying you people are taking too much. Now you are going against her. She's also taking too much. Money. All
right, let's move on along to
I just want to say something about CDF,
yes,
if you would allow me. I personally support the CDF in terms of the fact that we need to target certain monies precisely to constituencies. In fact, that's why I even wanted the idea of a possible ward development fund. Why? So that you do not alienate constituencies that, for instance, do not vote for a governor. So it's a form of devolved fund. Yeah. You do not alienate a constituency that does not, or a ward that does not vote for a governor.
Okay.
So that money is channeled directly to those constituencies. But I do not agree that the MPs are the ones to manage it. It should come within the structure. So I know that there is money coming to Mvita constituency, notwithstanding. In fact, they've increased their CDF allocation. In fact, they made a general principle that no constituency should get below 100 million shillings. So therefore now I think the CDF kitty has gone up by about 20 billion. 35 billion. It's gone up by 35 billion this financial year because they set up this minimum standard that no constituency, notwithstanding, should get below 100 million shillings. So what needs then to be done, in my assessment, is that we need, yes, we let the money go to Jomvu constituency, let the money go to Mvita, let the money go to Ndiwa, but let's have a structure of management that is not member of parliament. After all, it will take away a whole tier of administrative money because we already have paying the governors and their structures to administer money. So there's the PFM Act that is applicable. So Governor Joho, for instance, in Mombasa will have no otherwise but to ensure that CDF money goes to the constituencies that has been allocated. He just prioritizes and leads the people's participation to determine their priorities.
Okay,
let me just point out that there is a court order actually telling the MPs that a constitutional court decision telling the MPs you should not participate in direct management. So even if they are gerrymandering and sub-rattling about this and that, the die is cast.
I think, Sophie, let me just chime in.
We will not move.
Let me just chime in so that we understand. I think one thing that is coming to clear is that one, no one is opposing the administering of money through the constituencies, the amount of CDF fund. I really think what is the problem is how it is administered, and I think that is what the Constitutional Court has spoken to, that the Act needs to be such that the MPs are not really managing it, but actually giving oversight roles. And I really think that within due time, we have a year to do that, and that legislation is coming up. So I really think it's all going to be sorted out.
Let's talk matters corruption now. Last week we saw Cabinet Secretary suspended, at least CS Kamau charged in court, and then Ngilu, Kambi, Koskei, Churcher files under investigation, some of them being cleared in some of these cases. And now there are certain members coming out to say that the clearing was, let's begin with the clearing before we go to Kamau, was engineered, choreographed.
Choreographed.
Oh my gosh, choreographed, yes. I think, yes, was choreographed. It is Michael, my co-host. He gave me something this morning from his part of the country that, you know, makes the L become an R. Anyway, yes, so engineered. What are your thoughts, Senator?
Well, one, I think it is unfortunate when I look at now the process where it's moving to. And for me, I always say our government is a very interesting, we have very interesting way the way we run government, not just the Jubilee government, but all governments. That we always say, as much as you'll be at the top trying to say you want reforms, just remember you have a cadre that knows what reforms will do, how they can prolong the time frame if they want, and you have no choice because they are civil servants who have been there for many years, and they know they are comfortable. If you remove them, you have to pay them and leave. When I look at now the process again, I go back to the same first question that anyone should ask.
Yes.
When we were vetting the team, when the list came, for example, to the National Assembly, these are members the president has appointed, vet them so that they now take their suitable seats. I thought, and I always believe, you have a report that says it has come from EAC, we have checked the background of so-and-so. This, in all the state offices that he has worked, this is what he has done. These are maybe the challenges that he has had, not just on money, but we have temperaments. We have. I thought we have broadened up that way of nominating someone. And therefore, when you look at all this, you ask yourself, if you vetted them and they passed that, how do you come again as the institution of EAC and tell Kenyans, oh, I vetted, they were vetted, yes, but now we've realized something happened 10 years ago, now we've brought it out.
Yeah.
It is wrong. So in the first place, the people who should be in court is EAC to tell us, how did you end up telling Parliament these were the right people? The NSIS should tell us, because, I mean, we are getting tired with this. It is becoming like a joke. In every government, after we come in, we fight corruption, and we end up. And I've always said, I wish.
What if they argue at the time investigations were still ongoing?
Well, you would have told Parliament investigations are still going. They will not have given the seat. They'll wait until you finish your investigation. But now, when you just clear them, and then you come, and an example, and I just want to send first the condolences to Kamau's family and to the mother, and just wish them well, and may God give them grace as they mourn and make sure the burial goes well. But when I look at Kamau's case, it's an insult to Kenyans. You can't bring us a case of 33 million where my road in Western Province was changed and given. You are not even telling us whether they ate the money or they diverted and given it to another road. Nobody can tell us now why it was given to that road and why they removed from this road. You've just finished and said mismanagement. I mean, really? Then Kenyans ask themselves, okay, but we had this name. We had this one. What happened?
Okay.
Senator? I mean, it's not going even down well to the president now. Right. It's like somebody's sabotaging him in the whole mess also. So I don't know.
I think I'm happy. You see, we said it from the word go, this thing is a sham. Kamau himself, the cabinet secretary, went to contest the proceedings by the EACC, which I think you realize that the court has said it has to first make a determination before the proceedings can continue. That whether EACC is constituted, properly constituted. So I think we have opened a Pandora, and I think the president, in his haste to try and satisfy a narrow public appetite and thereby his media appetite, to try and show that now he's dealing with corruption, set in place a process that is going to clear everybody. A process that is going to be quashed as lacking in its constitutionality or otherwise. You go and witch hunt commissioners on a basis of a frivolous, petition. You hound them out. The whole theater of their exit is extremely murky, saying we were offered jobs in Brazil and things like that nature. One takes flight because of the intimidation, Professor Nsongo. I think what he's done is to simply mismanage a process. I think in fact, the net effect of saying that this commission is ineffective means that now a Jubilee Parliament, National Assembly, will be able to appoint new commissioners. And you've seen the commissioners they have been appointing so far. executive directors of their parties, TNA and stuff of that nature. So you're going to have a commission then that is lame duck, that you're going to control and manage and influence in every particular way. So I think my honest estimate, I think this corruption war is going nowhere. And I think when you do anything without the clarity of law and constitution, that done for public theatre, once the theatre ends, you know, the reality strikes. And that's why Jubilee MPs themselves are now starting to say that this thing is a farce, just because they don't like the outcome of what happened. Initially, they were all in praise of what is happening.
But isn't also there, Neto, another angle in as far as when some MPs say that it's the entire system that's broken? Yes, on one hand, you could say the president was just doing this for PR, but on the other hand, there are those who say the police officers inside the EACC, those investigating are corrupt. The judiciary, the entire system through and through is facing its own corruption issues. And so to be able to take what it is they come up with at the end, one wonders what kind of mechanism it has been put through in as far as it being above board.
I think the two senators have spoken very well. But let me start by responding to what Senator Elachi did say. No one is sabotaging the president. The president is sabotaging himself. I mean, do you know, I sit in the Committee for Justice and Legal Affairs. Just let me say a couple of things. You know, when the commissioners were being removed, I sat in that committee, and you know, my own committee gave 3 reports. One, to dismiss the petition for removal of commissioners. The second one was remove the commissioners but keep the secretariat. There's another report throughout everyone. I mean, the last report, of course, I descended to all those 3 reports, and I'll explain to you why. The president himself invited the coalition, 14 members of the Justice Committee, to State House for lunch and gave them a tongue lashing as to why they wanted to keep the commissioners. I mean, look, you give us a list in the National Assembly of people who are allegedly corrupt, then you want, through a frivolous petition, I'm happy the Senator calls it that, and actually that's what it should be called. It was a frivolous petition. How do you, for example, say that Commissioner Matemu is incompetent? How do you measure competence when he was already incompetent when he was in office? So there's a lot of things that the president was not being honest about. 2 things are going to happen. 1, that there was no one who was going to be charged. 2, those who are going to be charged will go to court and question the constitutionality of the commissioner as is, so that in the net effect, no one is going to be charged. 3, people are going to be targeted. I really think what the president was trying to do was to throw away some people they didn't want, and I think Kambi and Ngilu, I'm happy that they're getting their flack, so that it's the people the president wanted out are the ones who are going to go out. The ones he wants in will go back in. So that he was trying to play with the psyche of Kenyans, telling them, I want to fight corruption, but look at what Parliament did. Parliament then threw away the commissioners, and Parliament then gave these are the people claiming Bill of Health. I really think the president is not keen on fighting corruption, and if at all we're going to move any further, the presidency, the president and the deputy must just change tact. Otherwise, this country is going nowhere in terms of this fight of corruption.
Whether, no matter what happens, everyone will have a manner in which to interpret them depending on how it suits them. He'll now argue the president wants to fix one of his own. If it's one of court members being charged, they'll say, look, they're trying to fix our people. There's no winning in this one, is there?
There is a winning. First of all, if we had a serious parliament, you have seen the senator here, when he talks, you think the country is finished. You see my brother Neto, they receive a petition. They receive it. And then they actually return a verdict. Remove. Then they jump outside the National Assembly and they say, the president, it was you. Yet they are the ones who have recommended. And the law is clear. Then what happens? The president is supposed to constitute a commission. That he does. Okay? But even the least, the president said, look at this. This is what I've been given. Again, they want to go back to the president. If you look at what is going on here, it is called the supremacy of the institutions. Is it EACC? Is it DPP? Is it who? And this supremacy battles, according to the Constitution, the president can do very little. The DPP is supposed to be independent. The EACC is supposed to be independent. So when they get the evidence, lawyers at the EACC, they look at the evidence, they say, we think these people should be charged. They send it to the DPP, they say, hey, who are you? I think you clear these people. There is no president in this world who can take a number of his cabinet secretaries and PSS and put them out there There's none. But when all this is done, the MPs do not want to look at where the problem is to deal with it. Because they think if you say the president, it will appear like the president is weak, and then you will get power next round. I don't think Kenyans are that naive. They see you're gerrymandering, and they're able to see that the problem begins in Parliament. If the petition was weak, they would have simply dismissed it. Whether you are called to State House or you are called to the White House, you'll still say, as far as we are concerned, there is no problem here. So I think the sabotage comes from outside. The president's resolve to fight corruption has been seen by taking the risk
But you have
and
to
saying,
realize,
my ministers, get out there.
Whether it's
Let's hear from Elachi, then we come
very
to Senator.
simplistic though for Whether to believe that it is simply a question of the president tabling the petition and a Jubilee Parliament, which they know of, which is hardly critical about anything, is now going to make a very reasoned judgment. Whether himself was once going to be used as a political hack in a tribunal that was set up against the GSC, then the GSC, the Judicial Service Commission. Remember that same frivolous petitions that came in an attempt to remove the GSC to gain control of it. So if we go into these stories, the country is being mismanaged. That's the truth, the reality of the day. Every Kenyan out there knows it.
First of all, I just want to say, one, the president has been very clear on this. I think for him, in his mind, in his determination to ensure we deal with corruption, he's top on it. The problem comes in to us. And that's why I said it is us, because Parliament had a right to say, look, this one, we want to advise you this. It's not going to work this way. It will just bring, it will look so bad, it will make our institutions look as if we are not using the law, but we are using our emotions, and our minds are not even, Kenyans will wonder, really? Now, when Neto explains it like this, Kenyans now get back and ask, okay, so if it was like that, then what happened to Chepkonga, the chair? Why did he have to move? And yet there were reasons to say, look, why can't we go slow on it? We will get there, but let's go slow and look at every point. I know in the Senate, it was very clear, and the report is very clear, that look, this is not the right way to go, and I know people were not happy. But now they've realized what we were saying, look at how it looks. It's too late, because in the Senate we said it very clear. The way we want to approach it, the process is going to put us into problem. This is the process we were talking about. Now, when ESC say we have closed, and then the DPP comes with superiority and says, you are still under me, it is me to determine, then Kenyans even are just wondering, what is this constitution that we passed? How many people do we have to talk to? What are the bottlenecks when you get into all these things? When shall we see sanity? There are many questions that are being raised.
I agree with Senator Elachi. The fact that she says that we are the problem, but I think she should be very specific that the Jubilee members of the National Assembly is a problem.
No, all of us.
This
is Parliament.
Look at how the National Assembly voted in the Justice Committee with regard to the removal of the ACC. All 7 members of who opposed the particular report was called MPs. And we were very clear. And I'm happy. We took the Senate position. We said the fight against corruption in Kenya is an institutional one. You do not deal with it by waking up and just sending away commissioners. Can we have a particular construct in a way that first we strengthen the commission and then clean out everyone else, send away the commissioner, send away the secretariat, because the secretariat is a problem actually. The secretariat of the EACC is a problem. So for them to take a narrow and simplistic a view and send the commissioners home, which now puts the Anti-Corruption Commission and ethics in a crazy position, I really think was really total uncalled for. I really think the second thing I need to say is that the chair of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee really needs to up his game. I mean, the Committee of Justice is supposed to be one that spearheads and gives proper oversight in terms of this kind of vetting. I really think we're soon degenerating into an injustice committee. And as soon as we do that, as far as we continue degenerating, I really think the country is losing. And the members of Jubilee and the Senator, please talk to them. Explain to the members of Jubilee in the Justice Committee that the National Assembly is supposed to be giving oversight. We are not part of the executive. In fact, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto are the executive. We are the National Assembly. Constitutionality expects of us to check them when in good times and in bad times. And as soon as they realize that, we will be doing a very good job for this country. But when Chepkonga and a few are called to State House and given promises of sending their relatives to Brazil, and then you come and rubber stamp a report, I really think we can leave the
Well,
country.
now that one we can't say here because we were not there.
No,
So I doubt whether they were given
But it's
that.
not in
Let's
dispute
refrain
that
from
it is
discussing
not in
like this.
dispute that there was a meeting in State House.
Yeah.
It was not in dispute that the committee had agreed to throw away the petition. It's not in dispute that they came and altered that proceeding, that recommendation, and I think that's a total farce. And I agree. And and I want to agree with Lachi. When we called, we actually summoned members of the ESCC across the board, the senator, the commissioners, and the chief executive. And I think our proposal were very succinct that this is not the way to go, and that we needed to mitigate around these matters more clearly.
All right, Weda, before we move on.
This thing of the president wants to do this. How comes when it comes to money, there is no court, there is no jubilee? You, Senator Omar, can you face Kenyans and tell them that the salary you are earning is not legal? And when you are passing it and taking it, did you say, now we court, we object because Jubilee are taking? Let us
You
not
see-
be that when
you
we are
see-
looking at
Finish.
national
Let him
issues.
finish.
Listen, we talk
Please,
about. You see, let's
please
not
listen,
patronize.
please,
salary
please.
I earn is legal. Don't
Please,
create a
please,
perception
please.
here
Let me
like I'm
finish, then
trying
you
to-
react.
No, later. When
This
you
thing
talk,
of-
a lot of Kenyans tell me when you talk, you need
Please.
to up your game in terms of what you tell Kenyans.
This
They're
thing
not
of-
they're not that simplistic.
All right, Weda.
You can't
So
continue
don't
saying
say
okay,
that.
okay,
You know, he's
okay,
coming
please.
here.
All right.
I don't earn any illegal
Please,
money. This
please.
guy he needs to stop that kind of
So
charade.
this
All right,
story
so
that
with-
whenever something goes wrong, whenever you people cook something in parliament and it goes wrong, you come and say, we in court, this is Jubilee Parliament. Please own up when you go wrong as
listen,
Parliament, as National Assembly, accept and say, we made a mistake here, we will do it correctly this way. Let's not, you will not get power by blaming President Uhuru every corner for your own mistakes. No.
Listen, we blame President Uhuru because he is the symbol that represents the Jubilee administration in its failing.
That represents Kenya, government,
for me, I do not believe
government.
half of the things that Uhuru does represent me at all.
No,
so
it
in that
does, it
regard,
does.
I respect him as the head of state because that's the symbol of national unity. But he's hardly done anything much to bring national
No,
unity.
he
So
must
that said and
withdraw
done, that's I don't have to withdraw anything. That's an opinion that I hold dear. But for the lawyer here to constantly just come to this platform, if you think there's an illegality in terms of our salaries, you go to court. There are so many institutions. You can't come here all the time blabbing.
Okay.
And yet you cannot even go and justify that position. But finally,
Yes.
Sophia, it is not true that there's a supremacy between DPP and NEP. Yeah? The DPP's office was created as a filter to either victimization or trying to let somebody get away with anything. So the DPP has the constitutional mandate either to direct an investigation, to close an investigation, so that determination finally rests on him. So the CID, any other D, will take their files to the DPP. He can say, investigate further. I have closed this file. He
Yes.
can direct an investigation.
Let's talk about...
Before that, I think
Less
it
than
is
a minute,
very
please.
important to always appreciate, and I know I respect my senator, but in terms of respecting institutions, I've always said you might have bad opinions on any leader in any institution, but let us always respect the presidency. We respect it. He's a presidency that brings unity to our country.
All right.
To people in Mombasa, he has done a lot. If it has not touched my senator himself, Omar, but many Kenyans in Mombasa will testify that
All right.
indeed they have seen.
But I think so.
They will
All
also
right, hey,
testify that the
hold on,
tourism industry
hold
has
on.
collapsed. They'll testify a
No,
lot
no,
of
no,
other
no,
things.
Just wait.
Listen.
And Sophia, I think what
Testify to many
St. Omar
things.
is not saying, I mean, St. Omar is appreciating that Uhuru Kenyatta is the president.
Yes.
But we're also appreciating that he's making fundamental mistakes. I mean, in issues of corruption, for example, he needs to walk the talk. He should not give us double standards.
Well,
But on the
that
one-
fundamental mistake is that National Assembly and Senate has not realized we are in a new dispensation. We must use
Your
the
point has-
Constitution. We have power
Lady,
to ensure he does not do
Gentlemen,
that.
all right, let's move on. Western Hotel, last week, Ruto, the deputy president, said we bought the land from the people who had been allocated and documentation is there. The report here in the Star this morning is highlighting some of the letters that did the rounds at the time, and PS in the Ministry of Transport then, 2001, Mudhaura, had cautioned about this particular piece of land, saying that a title deed needed to be issued to the Directorate of Civil Aviation. So So there's a Jacob Juma who's gone to court asking that a title be issued to Western Hotel to be cancelled. That title will be cancelled and the hotel be demolished. Should that be the cause of action we see going forward, in as far as this hotel and where it's put up and the controversy around the same? Neto.
I didn't want to talk about Western Hotel because I told you, like, we've just spoken about corruption. I will tell you the presidency smacks of corruption and impunity. You know, when you have one
you
thing
cannot put one blanket statement. Whatever you say, you have to
I will explain
justify.
to you. I will explain
yes.
to you. You know, first the presidency is shared. That is what I mean. The president and the deputy are together. First, you must say, for example, when the president was sending away Kambi and Ngilu, I think the deputy should have been the first one on that list. We're not saying this as code so that we get power like we're the ones to say. I mean, look, you cannot be in every other scandal. You admit on the one side that you have shares in Western Hotel and the land is controversial. I mean, what sort of leader are you? I mean, I don't want to comment about this. It is as dirty as it looks, and I really think Kenyans really see what is happening out there.
Okay.
I think the deputy president is doing us a lot of disservice.
Whether
I don't know why it is very convenient for them. Each time there is something, the president. You will not get President Uhuru's seat through those propaganda. You will only get it through the ballot and with the truth. That land, if the report on Star is correct, was acquired when Ruto himself was minister. Okay? Those many years, he was not deputy president. So linking it with the president, Uhuru's presidency, I don't seem to understand. But looking at it now, the deputy president admitted that that is his land. There is if that report is correct, that was public land, acquired. He has put in investment there. The question that we should be addressing, okay, would be, was it properly acquired? If it was not properly acquired, and in view of the investment on it, can he pay good value for it on behalf of the public? We look at the easier evil. Do we bring down the hotel as a country, or do we get good value for it? But we accept this was a mistake that needs to be corrected in this way. But now to combine it and say, oh, now let's bring down Uhuru's government so that we take over. That is the wrong way of looking at it. Very straightforward things.
Do you agree with
You know,
Juma?
the problem
Cancel
is-
the title of this land, demolish the hotel, and revert it to the civil aviation?
You know, these guys asked for a job. They thought it was easy. They didn't realize that this is a job where fingers point at you whenever there is inability, lack of will, political or otherwise, to take over, to take on an issue that is weighty.
Okay, to
so
the
they're becoming
question.
very irritated. What the Weda wants us to do is to start blaming small little people. We will blame them. You know, that's what you do as a government. We as an opposition know where the buck stops. But that said and done, I think for me, I totally agree with Senator Orengo. He was a minister in that docket, and he has given us a general view of how that hotel was acquired illegally, or that piece of land, in a manner that I think denied public the benefit of that land. So I think what happens is now we need to retrace our steps backwards and see what is the most severe repercussion. And I don't think we need to go an easy way out. If it gets to that point where it is a public concern, we need to send a very heavy message. You know, the president one day went and blew up that what do you call that MV, that ship, contrary to a court order. So what I want him to do is to come with his military to show that he's fighting corruption in a big way and land grabbing, mine that place, and stay and hover with a helicopter as it blows up in air, so that we can be able to know that now he's up in fighting corruption in a big way, much as he's fighting drugs and stuff against the court order.
Well, let us not bring issues of drugs with land, yeah? Drugs kill.
I'm talking about the similarity of action, the viciousness of
for
action.
For me, I think it is very disappointing. And well, I'll agree with Neto and Omar. They have to continue looking for issues, because or else they'll become very relevant. So when you get anything, you make it an issue and you tell Kenyans in your propaganda way, that's okay. But for me, why now? Now is when we've known this land. Now is when Orengo wants to help Kenya, when we gave him a very good position to help Kenyans to deal with land issues at that time. Why didn't it come out at that time, before even the hotel was built? The hotel was just built the other day. Why now? Is it because now?
But do you agree with Jacob Juma, going by what has happened so far? going forward?
Well, we
So-
cannot bring it down.
Sophia, let me tell you two
Because we have to ask ourselves from the beginning, where were we? When I look at now the fight we even had at Langata, just because it is next to Deputy President, we all said
but-
it is Deputy
So
President.
to
it is
rectify the
him.
problem
But-
now,
but Sophia,
because yes,
Sophia,
where
let
were
me-
we
let
then?
Why
me-
should we
Hold
rectify
on.
it now,
Hold
Sophie?
on, yes.
Well, I remember we had an issue on this Mombasa route, and we had houses that were supposed to come down.
Including this.
And
very
the
center.
Prime Minister then stood firm. Why didn't we bring it down?
Okay, but a couple of
Why
things.
that one? Why did we bring this one down? So let's start with
But
all
those-
of them
those are
and then bring that
those
one
are
down.
two
There
different
is
things.
nothing
That-
different.
This one,
This one
no,
took road.
this one
That
was
one, what
not
has
a
it
road
taken?
reserve.
All right.
This was not a road reserve. It was what is called forced acquisition.
I'm saying
they said that they
Kenyans knew
wanted,
there was an
they
issue.
wanted
One at
this-
a
no,
time.
no.
So we can
Seriously,
hear,
this,
we cover-
this,
No,
this is not
I'm
true.
just saying,
Beatrice,
I
go
don't
factual.
want the way Kenyans,
Beatrice,
we
go,
manage the
go
processes.
factual.
All right,
I'm
your
being
point has
factual.
been made.
Factual.
Please,
Let me-
Omar,
yes.
briefly.
I'm being
Let-
factual.
let-
Sawa, your point has been made.
This, the standard group, the Samia group, it was a road carriage that was being proposed that was going to pass somewhere. And then these properties had already been built. And therefore, there was a proposal to a forced acquisition, which is a very general acceptable norm in law. But they looked at the cost impact that you demolish billions of shillings worth of buildings and therefore it was not cost impact. But in terms of what he's talking about, why now? It is because for the first time, Ruto took personal responsibility on a Citizen TV interview that this hotel belongs to him. He has an interest in
And
the
that
hotel.
he has proper documentation
Yes,
from the people
yes,
who owned
absolutely.
it
So
before.
therefore,
the question
that
now
was,
is, should the
that
court...
answers the why now question.
But now,
For a long
couple-
time, he has not come out as
Neto,
clearly.
briefly.
Yeah, just to say two things. First, the why now, Omar has almost tried to answer it. But also because the land is coming to light, several things, because other public land next week was being grabbed, showing the appetite for land grabbing. We're not saying this for purpose of being in the position, but that's aside. Let me talk to what Weda said. Weda knows very well in law what you do with public property that has been illegally alienated. So you cannot just say, let it stay as it is right now because of several things. If it's public property that has been improperly acquired, and I think there needs to be recourse.
Okay. Yeah.
For me, if we want to deal with public property, Kenya, and nobody should speak. Let's go for our public property. We'll start with molasses. We'll start with everything that we know was public land and take it back. But this thing
the
of,
biggest
of
loser will be
having
Uhuru Kenyatta.
political issues, just because the DP could not be with them for them to sit. And they should respect the DP for making sure the Prime Minister came in as Prime Minister, courtesy of William Ruto.
One would argue you're
Let us not
politicizing
be
issues
playing
and
this,
say that
and
two wrongs don't make a
politicizing.
right.
Now that we are so angry and so angered
You're the
with
one
what
who's
he
angry,
did.
actually.
Now the revenge
Sophia,
on William
I think-
Ruto.
I
But
Every
I
time
agree,
you touch, you talk about corruption. Everything you touch, you talk about corruption. Be clear on what you want. Tell Kenyans we were angered. He refused to make sure we came into power
That's
and
not true.
moved.
But does that take away
but
from
I-
the substance
I
of the
agree.
issues at
I
hand?
will
Does
still
it take
stand
away?
and say, if you want to deal with Weston, let us be correct as Kenyans and deal with everything. We have water catchment areas we took in Westlands where...
So you agree that should happen? We should take-
We bring them down, then we come
So
to
the court
this
should
road.
rule that Western, the land
I
that it
totally
sits in,
agree.
back
And,
to
Based
And,
on my friend Orengo, who was there, and now is when he's telling
No,
us...
yeah,
oh,
but
come on.
you're
Listen,
right
but,
from the
Sophia,
question.
I
I'm not
totally
going to
agree.
agree on something that I know we are doing wrongly.
Sophia,
There was a process, you would have followed that process. 10, 20 years
Since
ago,
it didn't
you would have
happen
sent
then, we're
Kenya
here now.
to take that land. Not now.
Sophia, you know what-
Not because he is now the deputy president.
All
What
right.
the
No,
Senate is not
not
telling
now.
you.
All right.
But I really
Not
appreciate
now.
her view that we need to go back
Take
and start taking
molasses,
every
many
molasses,
things.
Kenyatta's. We have to look at do
Doesn't
a
matter.
property
Let's go
audit.
back to that.
I am
It's
so
investigation that needs to happen.
I am so for that opinion. I wish you can go and articulate it. In fact, I will call Raila immediately. I leave here. I asked him that we need to take stock of everything
Of what
that
you
was
have
taken,
taken,
and
especially
then
the
you
Grand
you
Coalition.
you
And
then
what was
you also
allegedly taken?
so allegedly
Yeah?
taken.
Yeah.
We need to take stock of what was taken, and Beatrice
I
thinks you
agree.
took molasses. And then number two, what we need to do also
I
is
did-
for
I did
let me
say-
finish.
Hold on.
Guys, so much.
One at a time. Wada, please.
Now, gentlemen and ladies,
And then-
especially my
Two
brothers, my court brothers, they are very good when they think that
Oh,
this
it's
will
propaganda. Oh,
divide
my.
President Uhuru and Deputy President. Let me tell you, the wars we have the world over is about land. land everywhere, from the promised land.
Yeah.
So what I want
The
to tell
Bible.
you is that when we are talking about land,
Yes.
let us not posture. Let us not talk that easy politics. Land and negative ethnicity can bring down this country. So you leaders, listen,
They will
please
have
listen, I'm
to
speaking
face
from
the
the bottom of
issues.
my heart.
We'll face them head on.
When it comes to that, you leaders elected, Senator, MP,
Yes.
please don't be reckless, don't be basic. Look at this country as a whole. If we start about land,
All right.
let me tell
Thank
you.
you, Sophia.
Our time is up.
we will have- we will-
1 minute.
I like the fact that when they're saying that we need to look at the issue of land holistically, please go and tell the president to start implementing the TGRC report, because it then gives us a
There's
reason.
nothing in that.
You think so? Let him start. Apart from emotion, let him start implementing all the. You wanted us to go through, see who stolen how much land, who is taken it where. I mean, let's look at the TGRC report and look at its implementation. Let's look at the breeders' reports, and then let's see who loses in this one.
And then if Weda says land and negative ethnicity, go tell your president to stop appointing constantly for all big jobs people who appear to come from read Anyang Nyong's article for Sunday. So you need to take that first step in ending a negative ethnicity. Number two, the issue of land, we will speak about it. It is important that we mitigate the issues of land.
Okay.
We know where the land grabbers are. Look at the two coalitions. The picture is clear.
Well, I think the Grand Coalition was the worst in our country. It put us into an awkward situation today. These are the consequences. Omar, you live with it. And let me tell
Which
you,
consequences
if this
of
is
the
how we
Grand
are going to
Coalition?
deal with
All
the land
right,
in our
ladies and
country,
gentlemen,
then
we
we are
want
on
to
a wrong course.
change direction, and let's play a clip that will help us do that, Director.
Kuanzia leo
ngataye
mtu ambaye anaiba mbuzi
chinya chorongor
na ng'ombe
gotit
hata kama ana bunduki
kating kityola nda magiting
chini,
kuparei
piga risasi.
utama.
So that there is Peter Okwanyo. He's a county commissioner at Baringo County, and he made those remarks sometime last week, I think it was Thursday, and said even if you find somebody walking around with a gun or without a gun and is with livestock and you think they've stolen, go ahead and shoot to kill, in essence. Neto.
You know, this is the sort of madness you don't want to comment on national TV. I mean, no one has power to take anyone's life, whether he's the president or a commissioner, whatever it is. I really think this kind of comments is what takes the country backwards. Yes, there's a problem with insecurity, but how to deal with insecurity is not about shooting people. It's not about the kind of harassment that has been taking place in northern Kenya. I really think the government needs to work on a holistic manner in terms of dealing with insecurity. And I really think on top of that list, Senator Elachi, please go and tell the president and the other people to come up with a proper security policy, so that moving forward, we have a proper security policy that shows us how to move forward as a country, not this knee-jerk reaction of shoot to kill. That is not going to sort out Kenya's problem, I really think.
Yeah, Elachi, there are those who would argue that this just gives perhaps a sense that there's no clear strategy on how to deal with the matters in the northern Kenya.
I think when you look at Baringo and the Pokots living in Baringo County, I think there's a problem in terms of, one, just understanding really, is it cattle rustling or has it gone beyond cattle rustling? Because I'm surprised the chairman of security in the country from the National Assembly comes from this area. What I don't understand is why they have not agreed as leaders, because in the end, we need to ask ourselves. I know when you go in cattle rustling areas, you'll find people telling you that hii ni pesa inatembea, that those cows are money. And who really instigates this are the same leaders, I'm sorry to say. Because where do the cow go? It is taken, it's brought to Nairobi, it is sold. It goes for meat and all that. Now, it's a business, a booming business that we must look at from the root cause. How do you use young people to start this, to make sure they're the ones who command and steal? Then they bring it to you, and then you go take. And we don't need to continue lying to ourselves that managing the security in Baringo, you will use a gun to achieve, you will use, no. The process has to go back to the same leaders. And the leaders must take responsibility. And the only way is first you use them through the courts. Put them on court and ask, why should you see your people dying every day? I mean, these are people living together. They have lived for many years. Why now that we are having a crisis, which we had 20 years ago and it was stopped? How was it stopped then? What was the strategy then? Why can't you use the same strategy? But in saying, and then when you look at the terrain, there are no roads, there's no infrastructure. We keep on saying West Pokot. This thing is not happening in West Pokot as per se. It happens in Baringo, and we have Pokots in Baringo. Okay. We must deal with Baringo County. Look at why is it that in Baringo County you have conflict with Samburu, you have conflict with Turkana. How do we first of all open up? Schools have closed. You go there, Sophie, you'll feel very disappointed. You're seated down with somebody, a leader comes in. We went for one of the meetings. It's very disappointing. This leader comes in and says, what have you come to do? You think you'll bring peace here? After all, we know how to manage our own things. And then the other one stands and says, wanaume ni kuonana. Tutoe shati kwanza. And these are leaders.
You're saying politicians.
And you're talking to yourselves anyway, because everyone, it is deserted. People have gone. So I was even wondering, this peace initiative, where are the communities that you're doing peace with? So it's beyond.
So the leaders, you're saying, need to be
if
more
I
honest
was
and more
the
of a clear
security, I
strategy.
first deal with the leaders, and they will tell you why we have this conflict.
In terms of a shoot to kill order, Senator Omar, it's not the first time we're hearing it from a county commissioner. Your own county commissioner in Mombasa, Marwa, did the same last year. What does this say to you in as far as the thinking at that level?
Desperate. It's just desperate. When you, I think when you, I'm telling you, there are inherent incompetence in terms of management of this country. And it's just desperate. When you hear recklessly county commissioners giving shoot to kill orders against the grain of the constitution, then you should know that. That's why they are taking shortcuts. In fact, it's good maybe he said it. Others are extrajudicially executing suspects across the board. These are desperate plans. These are desperate strategies. My own assessment: that county commissioner should have administrative action taken against him. I think to put in some level of decorum, because these things might be taken to be for fact, and then there might be opportunistic killings. And as I said, we need to develop that security strategy, because it's in all our interest to see peace in Baringo, in Mandera, in Garissa, everywhere. So I think that is what we need, and I think we need to equip and respond to the challenges. If you're talking about infrastructure and everything else, those things will not come anytime soon. So in the meantime, what are the strategies that we can employ there? Right. And finally, I don't want all the time to start blaming the leaders, because if there's any evidence that any of these leaders is funding this violence, they are not above the law. They can be taken and be prosecuted where there's evidence. We've seen it being done to some of the leaders. Why is there impunity on others?
All right, Weda.
That shoot to kill order is a bit unfortunate. I think it reflects the frustrations of officers down on the ground, and it is utterly illegal and constitutional. What is sad is the situation in Baringo, West Pokot, requires a fairly comprehensive policy backed with resources. The national government appears not to have sufficient resources, because the members of the National Assembly, led by Senator Omar here, are busy about their salaries and their allowances, that even this budget, they did not even ask. They did not, please allow me to finish. Allow me to finish, please.
Because you know
they did not even say, look, please.
No, not a question of please. I know, to try, you know, this man should stop being petty. I'm being very honest. This man should stop being petty. The feedback I always get is about his pettiness, and I think you should stop being petty.
All right.
I'm telling you.
This time, as they were budgeting and jostling over 1 billion here, 3 billion, the depth and what we have seen, they would have said, we need this kind of money first to mark, because internationally, when there's such conflict with cattle, you mark them so that you're able to say this ones belong here, this ones. That requires money, resources. They should have allocated. So some of the monies you are taking, flying around in hotels, talking, allocated for areas like West Pokot.
I wish this guy knew how to run a government. This guy is very petty, I can tell you.
Omar, I'll go in for you. I think whether you should stop having fun with the members of National Assembly.
It's petty. It's not a question of fun.
I really think
it is true.
Let's put the facts out there.
This guy has been aspiring himself to hold all elective positions. He's been losing. It's just petty.
I really think whether the truth of the matter is that there's money that has been allocated to the security docket. That is actually the single sector that has the most money, and Senator Elachi is in agreement with me. So first of all, you need to look, you must read and know what you're talking about. It looks like you do not know what you're talking about. But now the second thing, having said that, I really think that how the the government is running the northern frontier is what is a joke. If you look at the amount of money allocated to the OCPD, the people, the county commissioners there's seriously no money, there's no personnel. That is what now needs to be allocated. The resource allocation should be more targeted towards the areas with need,
Okay.
as opposed to concentrating it at the national level. But just to go back to what Senator Mara said, I think he's put it very well. I think that is actually where I would like to really put it. That there's inherent incompetencies in this particular government. People who are suffering from an arrival syndrome, the weather type, we do not understand what they're talking about. And they're here, you know, you have a government
Seriously,
that does not see how to proceed. So that they do not know how to lead the country, they won the election, they don't know what to do with it, and they're shocked that it's difficult to manage a country.
Well,
Final word.
Final word. I think we need to rethink a DDR program on the whole frontier so that you try and just bring back communities, disarm them, because they have most of them illegal arms on their hands, but also to just tell NATO, you are enjoying, you are having your salary, you have county governments moving on a foundation that is very critical, and that government has done it, and therefore, when they are in the cold, trying to see how they will help their principals because they're in the cold, the best we would have done with your, one of the amendments would have been, if you fail, come back to Parliament and stay there instead of just being thrown out until
Sophia,
an
come
MCA
on.
is
I
more
mean,
powerful than talk more than even the principal.
Sophia, public confidence, on the public confidence in the Jubilee administration has waned substantially. It has nothing to do with the only competitive age that the Jubilee has in terms of even remaining in government is their ethnic numbers. Outside that, they have no policy, they have no competence, they have no capacity, they have nothing.
Right,
so I think and you are bound to lose in the 2017.
Well, if we have no
Ambrose
capacity
Weda,
and
lawyer,
people are
thank
still
you for
fighting in
joining
those
us.
offices looking for some monies and all that.
Beatrice
God.
Salachi, Majority Whip in the Senate. Agustino Netondewa, Member of Parliament. Hassan Omar, Senator Mombasa County. Thank you all for joining us today on the show. It has been a pleasure, and that is the way it is at a few minutes past 8 a.m. And do stay with us because coming up, we'll have an inspirational interview with Michael Gitonga. You'll meet a couple that struggled with abuse of alcohol and drugs, how they overcame that, and how they're using what it is they went through to make the society, the country, a better place. Stay with us right here on KTN.